Hey, sick of y'all, bro.
Percocet, Miley Percocet, Percocet, Miley Percocet, Percocet.
So I finally finished Pokemon Legends ZA just to get through the game and to make sure that I was firm on my opinions before I released any more content about it. I had made most of my way through the story. I've got more than 70 hours in. Just to make sure. And I know people are gonna get on me and be like, "Ha, you played a game you didn't like." But guess what? I formed a concrete series of opinions after spending a lot of time with the game to make sure that if I didn't like it, I understood why. And I don't necessarily think that as a person who critiques media, that that is a bad thing to do. So yeah, that's exactly what I did. That is what happened. I spent 75 hours on a game that I do not enjoy all that much to make sure that I'm firm on my opinions. But upon reaching the end of that journey, what I have fully come to understand is that I truly don't like these games. And it's fine, right? Pokemon is just not for me anymore. I'm a 31-year-old man. I get it, the games are for kids. They also cater a lot to my age demographic with all the Gen 1 pandering. So I do think that that's a sort of incomplete analysis. Like it's kind of weird to cater to people who are adults and then go, well, the games are for kids when they engage with the games that pander to the older demographic. Why pander to me for my money if you're not going to build difficulty or mechanics that I would find interesting because it's for children? Stop pandering to people in their 30s then. Like, don't go remember Gen 1 to people who aren't old enough to remember Gen 1. That just, it feels dishonest. But outside of that, I accept that the games are not for me. But I want to talk about a couple of comments that I've gotten about my criticisms because the comments that I've gotten about some of my criticisms don't really make a lot of sense. So to make this go by more smoothly, I'm going to go comment by comment. The first comment that I've gotten and that I've gotten multiple permutations of sort of showed up on a couple of videos, both on Instagram and here on YouTube, and it essentially goes, and I'm going to butcher this paraphrasing here. I'm gonna butcher this quote. Multiple people in the video where I said I expected these games, both Pokemon Legends Arceus and Pokemon Legends ZA, to play similarly because one is a direct sequel of the other. Many people were confused and they went, "Wait, how are they sequels if they're so far apart?" And I was confused as to why everybody was confused because a sequel is a part of a series that continues the plot or the themes of a preceding entry in that series, meaning returning characters, returning themes, returning mechanics, returning storylines, returning ideas, or just being set a part of the same world. And most Pokemon entries do that. So not only is ZA a sequel to Legends Arceus in regards to feel and title and some of the mechanics, but also if we want to talk about returning characters, it is absolutely a sequel to Pokemon X and Y, multiple returning characters. And if we want to focus on the Arceus part of this, very specifically, it is strange to me that you all don't consider this a sequel because of how far they are apart when they quite literally bring up Hisui in these games. There's an entire museum dedicated to calling back the previous entry. This game is a sequel. It doesn't matter if one game was set in the 1800s and this game was set in current time. That stuff being far apart in time doesn't make it not a sequel, and I don't know how we got lost on that. Especially if the introductory game in this series very specifically and explicitly mentions time travel. I don't understand how you didn't think that these would be sequels of the previous game because they were far apart in time in a game series whose introductory entry had time travel. The main character of the previous game showed up because Arceus pulled him through time and space, or her through time and space, them through time and space, in order to participate in the plot of that game. Participate in the plot of that game. I am so flustered. I am so sorry, y'all. I don't know how y'all went, oh well, they're too far apart in time. They're not sequel. Like the shit had time travel in it. Like, I don't want to be crass, but like, come the fuck on. There are parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that happened decades before the other parts. If we're talking about part one and part two versus like Stardust Crusaders, Diamond is Unbreakable, and all the other ones, decades apart, almost a century of time. There's still sequels. There's still sequels. You feel me? Like I don't. The Silmarillion happens thousands of years before The Hobbit. The Hobbit is still a sequel to the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion is still a prequel to The Hobbit, even though the Silmarillion was written after The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings were written. Still, if we're talking about the chronology, sequels, and then The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings happen about a century apart. I don't. How did you do that? How did you have to fundamentally not know what a sequel is to have done that? And that bothers me because it is difficult to have conversations about what a game is or isn't doing right if people don't know what stuff is. And it seems that I am coming up against the matter of people just not knowing what stuff is. How am I supposed to address a topic if the people I'm talking to do not understand the definition of the topic? Like, I get it, we're all coming from different walks of life. I did think that we had a basic understanding of what a sequel was, and Pokemon games are sequels. Returning themes, returning characters, returning ideas, returning gameplay mechanics for the most part. Again, I know things change sometimes, but I thought we were all coming from the same place on that, and bumping into that while trying to talk about my issues with the shifts in gameplay specifically have been difficult, which lead me to my second point, which sort of created the first point. Uh, my second point, and the second thing that I've gotten a lot of comments on, um, is I expected one game that was a sequel of another game to have similar gameplay. And a lot of people are like, well, it's a side game. It doesn't have to have the same gameplay. You're just a purist. You don't want them changing things, and that's bad. And to that, I would say, and I've said this again, Mario Kart is a side game to the main Mario series. No matter what they add to Mario Kart, Mario's base gameplay is the same. You hit the acceleration button, you drift, you use the power ups, you fall off of the track. Lakitu pulls you back up and takes some of your coins. That has been the same for decades now. They add mechanics and layers to that, but the base of the game is the same, because when you want to build a series of games, maintaining consistent gameplay from entry to entry is actually extremely important, because that's how you get your fan base to return game after game after game, because they know what to expect. No matter what you add to it, they fundamentally know what to expect from entry to entry, regardless of what you do. And I do believe that that is very important to building a game and building a brand. And Pokemon is a brand that is based on its characters, and people come back time and time again for its characters, but its side games should be consistent. I brought this up in the example that I used before, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. It would be very weird if Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team Red and Rescue Team Blue, the first two entries in that, were dungeon crawling games, and then the next entries were a first person shooter where you got to play from the point of view of the Pokemon. That's a big leap. That's a very big leap, right? And maybe some people are like, oh, that's cool, but like maybe just make a Pokemon game that's that. You know, it would be very odd if Pokemon Pinball was Pokemon Pinball and then Pokemon Pinball 2 played like Pokken. It'd be odd. And I don't think I'm wrong for having the internal expectation that games within a series would have consistent gameplay entry to entry. I don't think that's all that wild. Personally, I just don't think that's all that wild. But a lot of people have taken issue with that point of criticism. They've even taken so much issue that they have brought up other game franchises to try to argue why that doesn't make sense. Specifically, multiple people have brought up The Legend of Zelda, and they're like, well, The Legend of Zelda's main gameplay has switched styles, and that was fine. So why is that okay, but Pokemon isn't? You're being hypocritical. And to that, I would say, changing gameplay styles because you change technological medium so drastically that it constitutes a change in gameplay in order to operate within the new medium is fundamentally different than a game coming out on a system and then a sequel to that game coming out on the same system and just changing gameplay entry to entry within 3.5 years. That's do you see how going from 2D to 3D and then needing to change how the game works so that it can acclimate to the 3D because it's necessary is very different from this game is going to play like this and its direct sequel, which is on the same hardware, is going to play differently because we need to spice it up. Like, do you see how the necessity of a mechanical change is fundamentally different than changing a mechanic for the sake of keeping it fresh in a franchise or in a part of the franchise that was new anyway? Like, you did not need to keep that part of Pokemon fresh because this was new. This is 3 years old. It's not like strong style and swift style aren't, or agile style, my apologies. Strong style and agile style aren't old yet. Throwing berries so that the Pokemon look one way so that you can sneak up on them and catch them, that's not old yet. And removing some of those systems like the berry throwing honestly makes catching alpha Pokemon or sneaking up on Pokemon and catching them that much more difficult to the point where it's barely an option and you're better off battling them, knocking them out, or taking them to the red and then throwing your Pokeball at them, which is a rehash of the old system. And what is the point of taking out new mechanics in order to have to rehash old ones in a situation where you're supposed to be keeping things fresh? That seems directly contradictory to me. So, in its attempt to keep things fresh, we've actually stepped backwards further into antiquity. And now the Pokemon have to stay on the screen for longer so that you can catch them after you knock them out, because trying to sneak up on them is impossible because player choice and player agency has been taken. And that's another big thing. I think that player agency is taken away when you take away the smoke bombs, when you take away the options for backstripes and the catching mechanics from Arceus to ZA. You take away a lot of the different ways in which players can choose to approach battles. And one of the dopest things about an open world game is freedom. So I have the freedom to go wherever I want in this game, but I do not have the freedom and approach to battle, which is most of the game, battling. And that freedom was incredible in Legends Arceus. And even though Legends Arceus did not have a true open world, there was so much to do in the individual sandboxes once you got far enough in the story missions, or if you figured out how to jump over certain gaps with your weird ear, or using collision detection to climb up ledges that maybe you shouldn't be able to climb. You ended up having a lot of options, and you got that from exploration. There are rooftops I can't get on because the Holovator doesn't work yet because I don't have that mission. And there aren't Pokemon I can ride that can help me like jump up there and cheat it a little bit so that I can get up there that are not glitches, right? Like, there are just hills, and depending on the angle that you're standing on them, your character can stand on them. And it's not a programming error. That's just how angles work. You can get your feet in there a little better. You had that. You had being able to roll up certain hills in order to get to areas that you couldn't get to easily, depending on what Pokemon you were riding. They took all of that away. This game has stripped so much agency away from players. And I feel like a lot of those losses in agency actually bring the game back, not forward. So when people are going, you're a purist, I'm like, it's not that I'm a purist, it's that these changes actually brought the game back, not forward. And y'all's main defense of this game is it changed things up. It changed the battles and nothing else. Everything else is like the old games. Everything else is further back. Everything else is the step back that we took from Legends Arceus to Scarlet and Violet, which were huge points of contention for people who had played both games and didn't enjoy Scarlet and Violet. Myself, I had Scarlet. My version of the game didn't work for 2 weeks. That's how bad my glitches were. You know, it's an interesting dance of how mechanics can shape how you can participate in the world freely. And I feel like in this entry, I lost a lot of freedom. And I feel like I was very clear about that. And apparently I missed people. So in conclusion, I think I'm just done with Pokemon. I think I'm not going to play any more Pokemon games. And it's not because I don't love Pokemon as a franchise. It's because I don't like the direction that the games are going in. And what I'm learning from this process is that it's really hard to talk about games and your subjective understanding of the objective reality that things have changed, and the things that have changed affect how you play the game, which no matter how you feel about it is refutable. Changing the way it works changes how you work it. That is not up for debate. And it's difficult to have a conversation with people about like what a sequel can and can't do, what a sequel maybe should or shouldn't do, if people don't know what a sequel is. How mechanics do or don't work, and how mechanics do or don't transfer from game to game, if people are going to be intellectually dishonest about their comparison points as to why games changed, if they're going to pull them out of their context in order to create really faulty arguments. And it just makes me not want to participate in the community anymore, because for all intents and purposes, I'm being gaslit by a community of people who, for all I know, might be children, right? These should be 15-year-olds with anime profile pics, and I'm trying to like discuss a long history I have of gaming through like context. And I'm talking to somebody who this is their third Pokemon game ever because they can't vote yet. And I have no fucking idea. And that's embarrassing. That's actually really embarrassing. And I also want to leave the community because it's very difficult to criticize Pokemon and go, well, these other games did this, when you're talking to a community of people who largely don't play other games. Like, a lot of Pokemon fans do not play anything else. And that makes conversations like this difficult, because I play a lot of indie monster catcher games like Koromon, like Nexomon, etc. And I played a lot of the Digimon story games. I think I played every Digimon story game that has been released in the US. So I have played Pokemon's main competitor, and I've seen what they've done wrong and what they've done right. And to look at Pokemon get wrong what Digimon got wrong in the 90s, and to watch them sort of switch places, and to be in a fan base where nobody will even acknowledge that because most people haven't played both. Because they went, well, Pokemon's the good one, and then that's all they played. Very difficult. Very, very difficult to have conversations. It's hard to talk about anything when people are sort of dedicated to brand loyalty instead of having critical conversations about what a franchise does with our money. And if we were to say attempt to organize a boycott, like we boycotted the 3DS when it came out because it cost about $80 too much, and we were able to successfully lower that price so that everybody can get the system for cheaper, I feel like we would never be able to do that again. I feel like we would never be able to do that again because people are too married to what they think their game should be like and their relationship to them. It feels as though if I don't like a part of a Pokemon game, people are reacting by saying, oh, you don't like the thing I like, you don't like me. And to be frank, I don't fucking know any of you, and I don't care if you think I like you or not. I said what I said about the game, and you are not Nintendo or Game Freak or the Pokemon Company or anybody else. You're a person on the internet who doesn't agree with me and can't even fully articulate how, because you don't have the context, because you were willing to be intellectually dishonest in an argument about how other games have changed, because you don't know what some words mean. And I know this part of the video seems insulting, but like, if you are my age, you should know stuff. And you should be able to articulate an opinion clearly without having to be dishonest about it. And that's just not the experience I had. It's just not. Also, I apologize if I sound congested. I still very much am suffering from strep throat. I'm getting better now. I'm on my antibiotics. I'm on my healing journey. But I've been sick for a while, and I'm finally getting over it. But a lot of phlegm in places. But yeah, being a Pokemon fan is kind of hard right now, and that is what it is. But yeah, if you agree with my points or my explanation of my points, great. If you don't, fine. Everybody sound off in the comments. Again, I would like to have conversations. It's just hard to right now because of where everybody's coming from. So maybe I'll catch y'all on the flip. Maybe I'll go in the comments and read again. Right now, I'm not really feeling it. I might look at the comments a couple of days from now whenever I post this. But I just sort of wanted to explain what I thought about why I didn't like ZA and how difficult it is to just talk about this stuff and why ultimately it's leaving such a sour taste in my mouth that I just don't want to be involved with Pokemon anymore for real. So yeah, I'll let y'all later. Peace out. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey y'all, it's me. It's 4 a.m. where I'm at. I've been up editing all night. To make a long story short, YouTube just hit me with a second community violation strike, which means if I get one more, I'm not gonna have a YouTube channel anymore. It was because I made a video with the N-word in it, soft. I did not use the hard ER. YouTube has let people call me the hard ER in the comments before, and when I've reported them, YouTube has done nothing about it, and they've even said that their comments do not go against community guidelines. And I have been flagged for bullying multiple times for clapping back at the people who have called me racial slurs. So YouTube is setting a precedent that I cannot use slurs that directly apply to me and my race, but other people can call me those slurs. And if I try to defend myself, they will kick me off the site. So if you want to continue enjoying my content, you are gonna have to get on the Patreon, because the Patreon is likely gonna be the only place it can actually exist, because they keep trying to take my channel from me. YouTube doesn't want me here. So that's that. Thank you all so much. Have a good one.